following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Garden Gate. Today we'll be touring the gardens at Beaver Brook. Open year-round, Beaver Brook is located in Hollis and extends into Brookline and Milford. A real gem consisting of multiple gardens and themes, several of which we had a chance to visit. With over 30 miles of hiking trails, Beaver Brook hosts children's summer camp, family picnics, and is a wonderful backdrop for wedding photography. The gardens here are maintained by volunteers as well as paid staff. So if you're looking to do a little gardening and don't have the space of your own, why not contact Beaver Brook Association and become a volunteer? So come along on today's tour, Beyond the Garden Gate. Good morning, this is Linda Temporino, and I'm out in Hollis today, and we're visiting the Beaver Brook Association, and joining us is Liz Brown. She's a volunteer here, and also she's a member of the Hollis Garden Club. Right. Good morning, Liz.
Good morning, Linda.
Thanks for joining us. This is heaven. I mean, the fragrance. Right now we are in the herb garden, and it is so fragrant and so lovely. The bees are all around, buzzing away. We just had a hummingbird visit this lovely red flower. I forgot what that is.
Bee balm.
Bee balm, of course, bee balm.
Yeah.
And the hummingbirds love it.
Yeah.
And there's a day program going on here. It's just a wonderful facility. So let's walk along the path here, and you can show me what we have here. Okay. I know this is Russian sage.
Yes, we decided a few years back to divide up the garden. So this is the Apothecary Gardens, both sides, apothecary and dyeing. And we also have a kitchen garden and a magic garden, which is a good witch garden, keep the witches away. Oh,
nice.
So we have Russian sage and tansy and, of course, everybody's favorite, the coneflower, Joe Pye weed.
That gets enormous, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it makes a wonderful dried flower, too, which we like to use.
Yeah, that's great. So.
And we also have peppermint, the scented geraniums.
Uh-huh.
And motherwort.
And what is this here?
That's motherwort.
That's motherwort.
Yeah, and lemon balm. This large plant is senna.
Now that's something I've never heard of before. So.
And ladies' bed straw. We used to hear about that women that couldn't stand the straw in their mattress, they would stuff their mattress with this, and it's much softer on their delicate skin.
Very, very nice.
Curly chives. There's some cosmere over there on the other side of the senna. And something new we're planting this year is the anise hyssop over in there. And I started that from seed at home. It took quite a while. I had to start it in February, so it took a while to get it going. Hope it survives.
And look at these. The thyme in here. How many different types of thyme?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh my goodness, I know there's lemon thyme.
Yeah, we have lots of thyme.
Lots of thyme. So, and little baby strawberries?
Yes,
Are those the French strawberries?
Yes, the little alpine strawberries.
Oh,
yeah.
That's lovely.
There used to be a tree in the center there. That blew over in one of the hurricanes years ago, and so we had a donation of the armillary, and we like that.
It's very, very attractive.
Yes.
It's nicely aged.
Yes,
nicely
it is.
aged.
Covered in moss.
And what do we have over here?
That is called soapwort.
The white.
The Indians were able to make suds out of the roots. And so it does make suds. Another name for it is bouncing bet. It spreads like crazy.
So it's a little invasive?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it has
well, you have it well contained there.
Well, and we even leave some goldenrod because that did have its purposes here.
Well, you know, the bees like it.
Yes,
and you
it's
have
a
to
good wildlife food, so we
absolutely.
think about that a lot.
So.
And the Russian sage, which we love.
So.
does very well here.
Well, let's walk over to the Russian sage and
Yes.
get a close-up of that.
Yeah, beautiful color.
Oh, it's so,
Yeah.
you know, and it's a color that you don't get in the garden that often, blue.
Yeah,
I mean, the balloon flower,
yeah,
this, and that's the only thing that comes to my mind
Yeah.
in the garden
yeah.
is with
and
blue.
this dries well too.
Yes,
which
and its
we're always
fragrance
thinking
is
about. And
wonderful.
look at the bees on it.
Oh,
It's great.
love it,
Yeah.
love it. So, and again, all the time.
Lots of different kinds of thyme, but they've all mixed together, and but we have so
Now, they
much
don't
of it,
require a
it's
great
great.
deal of water, does it, thyme?
They don't need any care at all, and they just. The only time we've had a problem of winters where there's been very little snow cover, and a lot of it will die back, but then it returns. So we had a lot of snow this past winter, so the thyme just has gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a couple of questions about Beaver Brook. How long has it been here?
Beaver Brook itself was started in 1964.
So this is your 50th year anniversary.
Yes, yes. This facility was purchased in '74, and then after several years of restoration by our buildings and grounds crew, the gardens was started, I think, in '81. And this was one of the first gardens, along with the Victorian garden up by the road. And then there was a group from the garden club that grew dried flowers in a different location than where we have dried things now. So it's evolved over the years with many different people.
And who started it?
Well, Ellen Nichols, Mr. Nichols' wife, one of the founders of Beaver Brook, his wife was very interested in horticulture. And they hired a full-time horticulturist to design all these gardens and put them in place. And so they've been here since '81. And now it's evolved to 12 theme gardens, and along with little assorted pockets elsewhere. So
Well, you mentioned 12 gardens.
Yeah.
Let's walk back there and see
Yeah,
if we
you
can
like
take
to
a
see?
peek at a few. Well, we've moved over to the Hedge Garden, and one of the most attractive aspects of this garden are these lovely arborvitaes. The shape of them is magnificent. Who does your shaping?
we have our professional come in, and he donates his services, and once a year. And yes, I agree.
They're fantastic.
Yes, yeah.
I have to find out who that is because
Yes.
my arborvitaes are looking kind of shaggy. And so,
Yeah.
and we have a butterfly bush back here in beautiful purple. And what is this here?
This is the sweet autumn clematis.
Oh, nice.
So in another 2 months, this will be in full bloom.
And it gets all white.
all small white flowers, just
And the bees love it.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
everything in this garden is
Yes.
loved by the bees.
Yes,
And
yeah.
the hummingbirds.
And butterflies.
And butterflies.
Yes,
It's just
yeah.
magnificent.
yeah.
Well, let's go inside and see
Okay.
what's there.
Okay.
I noticed quite a bit of activity going on here today.
Yes,
You have, I see a lot of children.
Right. We have summer programs for children all summer. The programs last a week, and programs for children from 4 up into high school. And there's also a group today that left the premises. They were going canoeing on the Nissitissit River. which
How
sounds
much
like
fun is that?
Yes. And I think this other group that just went by us are called Flying Creatures. So there's a lot of fun things to do here.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether it's ponding or gardening or building forts in the woods.
Oh, how
and
fun.
survival programs for the older kids. And,
Really, really nice.
yes.
How extensive is the property here?
Beaver Brook as a whole
Yeah.
is probably about 3,000 acres. That could be right. I'm not sure. I know they have 30 miles of trails. And they have property not only in Hollis, but Brookline and Milford. And it's just open year-round, dawn to dusk,
And I bet you get a
day.
few weddings out here, don't you?
sometimes, not as many as you would think. A lot of photography goes on out here, whether it's class pictures or weddings or
Well, that's what I meant about
photographers. But I know there have been weddings here. Sometimes we know about them, sometimes we don't.
Yeah. Well, that's what I meant about,
Most
you know,
things are
taking
supposed to have an
photographs.
educational purpose. That's what Beaver Brook is mainly about, land stewardship and education. So.
And I saw over in the back there, you've got quite an extensive composting going on.
Yes, we do.
Is that lady over there, would she be available to talk to us?
Yes, that's Celeste, and
Okay.
she said she would talk to you.
Wonderful.
A few years back, the Scouts put up that compost court to show different kinds of containers that you can use. I take care of that 3-bin one that's right in the front, and I've planted gourds in there this year so we could have them at our fall festival in
fun.
September. So you can see they're starting to blossom, and there's a few gourds out there.
Great. Okay, let's put the bench back in its place and
Okay.
walk on over.
All right.
Okay. And what garden is this?
This is called the dried garden.
The dried garden.
It extends over to our left and beyond the hydrangea there. We do a lot of growing of things for drying. We're able to pick them at the right time, hang them in the loft up in the big barn, and in the fall we make dried arrangements and bouquets and sachets to sell at Beaver Brook's Fall Festival, which I
When is
mentioned.
that?
That's on September 27th and 28th. It's certainly worth coming to see.
Yeah, have to put that on our calendar.
Yes,
Yeah. Now these are
these are chives.
yeah?
We pick chive blossoms for drying.
Oh, I was
we
going to
use
say.
daylily stems for sometimes legs on little animals that we make.
Oh, I was wondering why you had the daylilies in this type of a
Yeah.
garden, because you can't dry the daylilies, but you use the stems.
And honestly, there's a lot of plants that are in the wrong place, like your own garden.
Yeah.
Things are.
That's what gardening's all about.
Yes.
If it doesn't work, move it.
Move it around. That's right. But there's a lot of Japanese lanterns in there.
Oh, let's look for those.
Yeah, you can see how they're starting to turn orange. You can just see right in there.
Looks like something's eating your leaves.
Yes, oh yes.
Oh my
There's
gosh, they look like little pumpkins right now.
Yeah,
They're so
yeah.
cute. Very, very cute. And Artemisia,
Yes,
you
we use
can't
a
have
lot
a
of-
drying garden without
That's
Artemisia.
right. We use a lot of Artemisia. Makes a great filler.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And what are these tall?
those are teasels.
Teasel.
And back in olden days, before machines, they would use the spiny teasel to pull the seeds out of cotton.
Oh my goodness.
But now we make teddy bears and hedgehogs and little animals out.
Cute, cute.
Little reindeer.
Gee, our forebears certainly were clever, weren't
Oh,
they?
yes, yeah. Well, they had to use what they
They
could
had to use what they had, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're on our way over to the composting area, so let's walk over there. Well, we're joined by Celeste Philbrick Barr, and she's the education director here at Beaver Brook. Is that correct? Yeah. And we're going to talk about this composting area. Where did you get this great sign?
About 10 years ago, we applied for a grant from the New Hampshire Governor's Office of Recycling, which no longer exists, sadly, but we were given this setup with identification signs for many different composters. Because we're a public venue, people can come here and see all of these different designs of composters in an effort to encourage more composting in New Hampshire. And we had the assistance of a Boy Scout to build some of these additional composting setups, and we purchased a few, and some were donated as well. So we have quite a few
Quite a selection.
of different styles for different households.
Great. Just take a walk in there so we can see the different styles, okay?
Okay.
And here we have a 3-bin turning unit. And this is Liz's composting bin that she talked about earlier. She said that she planted the gourds in the bin. Well, here they are. and they'll be using these for their dried arrangements in the fall. And we have a beautiful example of what's coming, and it's quite pretty. If I touch it too much, it'll fall off. So, but we have some others over here, and this is strictly some metal fencing and some wooden posts, and it's open on the other side, so you can turn it. So.
Yep, 3-bin systems are really, I would recommend that this as the best optimum setup for someone who really has a lot of material from their garden or their home kitchen to compost. The advantage of a 3 or even 2-bin system is that you can be adding to one bin fresh material while leaving the older material to decompose, to break down and turn back into humus. So the problems with some of the single bin systems is that you're always adding material and you've got good finished compost on the bottom and raw vegetables on the top. So this 3-bin system is very advantageous. This is the freshest material on this end. You can see there's flowers that have just been put in a week or so ago. And the middle bin has been turned once. This has been probably turned twice to get to this point. And the best stuff has been, is on the far end where Liz planted the gourd seeds, and that finished compost was actually sieved. So it's a very, it looks like something you'd buy in a store, in a bag. And people do pay a lot of money for bagged compost if they are doing gardens or containers. And
I'm just going to step back for a minute and get a handful of that compost so we can show it on the camera.
Yeah, get that little container over there if you want by the finished one. You can also build the 3-bin systems out of wood, which is the kind I have at home. I have wooden slats instead of wire, and I have little doors on the front, so I open the door. It keeps animals out if you have a door on it.
Now this looks like very, very rich dirt.
Yes, that is gardener's gold.
Gardener's gold.
You pay a lot of money for this if you buy it at the garden store in bags. And in fact, some people order dump truck loads if they're really doing a big, large bed. And so you can make your own. And
what is the time length from here, from
one end to the other?
Well, from 1 to 3.
It depends how much you manage it. I mean, decomposition is happening naturally all around us all the time. In the forest, all the leaves that fall off every year, they're decomposing and breaking down into this material. But that will take several years to happen in the forest because you'll have, layers building up. If you manage it and you're very aggressive composter, you can do this in 6 weeks. But you need to turn it every day. You need to keep it moist, and you need to have the exact right blend of carbon and nitrogen.
What is the blend?
The perfect blend for expedient composting is 30 parts of carbon to 1 part of nitrogen. Now that's kind of a scientific thing. That's not how you wheelbarrow your stuff, because that's a dry weight chemical basis. And we are not dealing in our kitchens or backyards with dry weight.
So you're talking about brown, green, and what else?
Just brown and green.
Brown and
green.
With
air and moisture, because the animals, the critters that are doing the breakdown, the worms, the viruses, the bacteria, the protozoans, they're living, and they need oxygen and they need a little water too. So if it dries out totally, they'll leave and go somewhere else to munch.
And there's no fragrance from this. People, I think, are under the assumption it's going to be stinky.
Right.
And there's no odor at all.
That's the mix. If you put all of your kitchen waste in a big pile, which some people do, it's very wet. Kitchen waste is, maybe 3/4 or more of water. So what happens is all that water bogs down the pile. It becomes a solid mass with no oxygen in it, and then no living things can live in it. You get anaerobic decomposition, and that smells like ammonia. So if you layer it with brown material, which is carbon-rich material, which would be dead leaves or dried out grass clippings or dried out weeds. So you see the weeds fresh are full of nitrogen and a lot of water. So they're kind of like your kitchen waste. So you could use pine needles.
Oh, you can use pine needles.
And that would be carbon. You can use wood shavings to an extent. So you need that balance. Grass clippings are as close to 30-to-1 by themselves. So you know if you make a pile of grass clippings, sometimes you mix it up and it's incinerating in the middle. That is the perfect mix. But you want to mix in dried material with your kitchen waste to avoid that ammonia smell or bad smell. And also turning it. So the frequent turning adds air back into the pile, and then the temperature comes up, the microbes are happy, they're chumping to get down to this level of particle size.
I'm going to come out here with my wheelbarrow.
I know, you can have a nice garden.
But there's an interesting little bin down here, and you tell me it was made out of used pallets.
Yep.
So let's take a walk down there and see what that looks like. Okay, so this is the pallet bin, and it's made out of 1, 2, 3, 4. Is there a fifth pallet underneath?
Nope.
This sits right on the ground.
Right on the ground.
And you just nailed or screwed.
You can tie them with wire. These are wired.
Oh, they're
so
wired.
You don't even have to have tools to make this.
Oh, my
we do
goodness.
have hinges on that one, but
Yeah.
for somebody, I hate to think that people have to spend money to do a natural process like this.
Right.
So you can always, I think everyone can find a place where you can get free pallets. Hardware stores, lumber stores, big department, home stores. And I would recommend perhaps a slightly larger one than this. But you just wire these 4 pieces together. You could wire this one and still have it hinge open.
Yep.
And you've got a free composter. And better yet, build 2 so that you've got an active pile and a passive pile.
Yeah.
But to me, even if this were a silent show on composting, if we just showed people that you can turn this and this into this with very little effort, this wonderful gardening product and soil amendment, that's just kind of magical. Really composting, you're accelerating nature's process is all you're doing. And important part for me is not only generating a nice gardening product, but getting all of this material out of the waste stream, because you will reduce your carbon footprint if you compost. You won't be moving this material by trucks potentially to landfills and incinerators. You'll be actually putting it back into the ground where it becomes the building blocks for other plants again. And it also is not beneficial to put this into the garbage disposal and put it into your wastewater stream, because it's unnecessary.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so very much, Celeste. This was very informative.
This place is open to the public here, so just like all of Beaver Brook's gardens, the public is welcome to come and look at these compost bins up close and maybe choose one that works for their house, as well as enjoying all the beautiful gardens.
We have others over here that more commercial, and I mean, for a small backyard, that's probably the way to go.
For an apartment or a very small yard, these covered things called earth machines, or even a trash can with holes drilled in the sides and the bottom.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because some people are not gardening, but they still can keep this material out of the waste stream, and it bakes down to a very small volume. So you keep adding and adding to it, and then it goes down to little amounts. So those are good, and they're contained so that wildlife doesn't get into them.
Great. Well, thanks again, Celeste.
You're welcome.
Thank you to Liz. She's out there weeding, having a good time. And hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hope you learned a little something. And come on out and join the people out here at Beaver Brook. They'd love to show you around. It's a great place to visit.
Here's a few more samples of what can be appreciated here at Beaver Brook.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.